The truth is what is fact. The truth is what I feel. The truth is who reports it. The truth is none of these truths are real. Because what is fact when the fact is based on who reports it? What should I feel when my facts are based on feelings? And who should I report to when reporters feel their way to the facts? Ultimately, only one truth is real, which is that truth is only fact when the facts are sourced from those who can only report without feelings. As a freshman, I was once invited to take part in a high school debate tournament in Dubai. It was my reward for being the fifth member of a small neglected debate club that I voluntarily joined in a lazy effort to expand my after-school interests beyond sports. The debate topic: nuclear proliferation. Should all countries in possession of nuclear weapons agree to disarm? Or is there a case to be made for stockpiling weapons as a sign of strength, particularly by smaller nations? Like any person with a poor understanding of the topic, I immediately branded this as a moral issue. Of course, all countries should disarm. After the atrocities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, what kind of a person supports the stockpiling of civilization-ending weapons of destruction? Monsters, that's who. This was gonna be easy. Riff for 10 minutes about how bad nuclear weapons are, then sit back and enjoy my free trip to Dubai. Oh, what's that you said? I need to start collecting facts and develop an opening and closing argument? And what? I need to research my opponent's possible arguments and provide facts to counter them? Okay, yeah, no big deal. Nothing a few articles from the BBC and Washington Post can't solve. Fast forward a few weeks later, I'm leaning up against the podium, staring down a scorecard that read like a football game between the New England Patriots and your local ultimate frisbee team. Hearing my opponent's closing arguments, the concise speech, passionate yet measured delivery, and well-researched evidence, all so eloquently weaved together. My only thought at the time: I wonder how many nukes I'd be stockpiling in my backyard if I ran a country. See, I had never really understood the significance facts and evidence can have on one's ability to convince others until taking part in this tournament. In the rules of this game, the term argument takes on a whole new meaning. This was nothing like the shouting matches I had with friends on the playground or family members at the dinner table. Like a soldier going to war, the facts are your armor, your guns, your food and water, and your radio for communication. You live and die by your facts, and without them, you might as well be a naked wild man, running towards heavy artillery fire, screaming nonsensical and emotional verbiage. But what happens when the facts themselves become distorted or underutilized, as is the case in our world today? Let's start with underutilized. The general consensus is that we live in a post-fact world. People constantly share opinions about important topics without presenting facts to back them up. Arguments between pundits on mainstream news outlets now resemble the verbal squabbles friends have on social media, loud and backed by nothing but pure emotion. The people who are entrusted with the responsibility of sharing the truth prefer to shove headlines at us that distort the reality of complex issues and simplifies them to being a case of good versus bad. Let me tell you where good versus bad exists: in cartoons and bedtime stories. Characters are branded as good versus bad because it makes it easier for children to retain lessons about morality and how one should operate in a civilized society. Part of growing older is understanding the complexity of social issues and how one's position on an issue should never be construed as evidence of their morality or lack thereof. Speaking of evidence, where is the evidence? And what pieces of evidence can we trust that hasn't been distorted? With the internet creating more news outlets than ever, this is another serious problem of our time. How do we establish what is true when the truth is dependent on the media outlet it originates from and their position on the political spectrum? When our attention spans can't handle digesting a research paper, so we opt for the headline instead and move on. Who would have ever thought that access to so much information would ultimately make us revert back to ignorance? And so the public debate rages on, in the town square, in your office building, and online. Yet a platform does not exist to mediate arguments in a way that removes all emotion, enabling people with opposing viewpoints to strike and counter with only unbiased evidence. This episode's idea tries to tackle the issue of truth in a systematic way. Aptly named Truthr, this solution is more than an extension of your social networking experience. It is a call to action for the Facebooks and Twitters of the world to do their part in making sure their users can easily arm themselves with expert certified facts and evidence to back up their arguments. The Truthr program aims to reinvent the way people respond to status posts, shared news articles, comments, or direct messages that state information about topics you support or disagree with. Similar to the way users contribute likes and reactions to comments, tweets, or Facebook status posts, they will also be able to contribute evidence to support or disprove any comment, tweet, or post. But as we've lamented already, where is the evidence? Where would it come from? And how would it be consolidated? Well, according to Truthr, true evidence should only come from the employees, scholars, and research experts who work in the fields in which the online debate topics center around. These are the PhD holders who published research papers in the fields of economics, biology, engineering, sociology, and more. These are also the employees working in organizations like the FBI, FEMA, the Department of Labor, police departments, and the federal statistical systems of the United States. The largest social networks would essentially partner with both the government and educational institutions, recruiting these individuals on a part-time basis to serve the public good with their factual knowledge. Under the Truthr program, social networks will continually provide these employees, researchers, and scholars with hundreds of the most popular status updates, comments, and shared articles made by everyday social media users concerning socio-political issues. The experts analyze each post presented to them, then upload relevant data sets, passages from non-confidential work documents, or from their own research articles as evidence to support or disprove the claims made in these social media posts. These varying pieces of evidence will be compiled to create what is called the knowledge box, a public database of statistics, data sets, and researched statements for everyday Facebook and Twitter users to pull as a resource when exchanging in public discourse across social media platforms. Keyword matching and advanced search algorithms will make it possible for Truthr to recommend the best pieces of evidence to use from the knowledge box based on the type of post you're responding to. For example, a criticism of gun lobbyists in America, and whether or not you agree with the position in the post. Confused yet? Well, let's paint a clear scenario for you. John, a liberal with lofty yet well-intentioned ideals about living in an open-bordered utopia, shares an article from ilovenativeamericans.us about Trump's immigration plans. The headline reads, "Trump wants to deport American Indians to India." Included in the article is a fake tweet saying, "I want those Indians back in India ASAP. Delicious food, love karma, but dangerous people with bows and arrows. Get smart, US. Hashtag illegals out. Clearly, whoever published this article chose to play on the oversensitivities of the pro-immigration left, as well as the general public knowledge of Donald Trump's obvious lack of knowledge when it comes to geography. Yet with emotions flared high by the already repugnant image ingrained in John's mind of Trump, that f***ing orange bastard, it becomes very clear to imagine the possibility that someone who wants to build a wall would also be willing to pursue the incredibly tedious and likely unfeasible task of deporting all Native Americans back to their never-before-visited home of India. So John shares the fake article to Facebook. Truthr recognizes the share, analyzes the keywords in the headline, and identifies it as a piece about Trump, American Indians, and immigration. Facebook asks John if he wants to add any supporting articles of evidence from the knowledge box. Confused for a moment, he pauses. That's weird. Why would I need to add any more evidence? I can see the tweets in the article proving that Trump said these things. Whatever. I'll just scroll through the menu of evidence and see what they have. Inside the knowledge box, he finds a report published directly from an employee at the Trump administration. This report summarizes the president's immigration policy, citing no mention of American Indians. In another report, there is some statistic data on Indian H-1 visa recipients from the Immigration Department. Then, he also finds a report by a government-sponsored fact-checking organization that lists ilovenativeamericans.us as a fake news site. But despite already being proven wrong, John moves on and shares the article anyways. Almost immediately, the post is met with mixed reactions from friends on both sides of the political spectrum. Some like it, some are angered by it, and some find it funny. Yet one friend, Sarah, comes across the post, and instead of leaving a like, reaction, or comment, she simply clicks a button labeled Fact Check. On her computer, a pop-up screen appears and presents her with 10 pieces of evidence from the knowledge box. Amongst those pieces of evidence is the same report on Trump's immigration policy, as well as the list of fake news sites with ilovenativeamericans.us included. She selects both the report and the list, and shares them in the comment section of John's post. John then receives a notification saying, "Sarah just fact-checked your post." Now John can either decide to respond back by fact-checking Sarah's fact-check, assuming he can find any relevant information in the knowledge box, or he can simply like, comment, dislike, and engage using any of the other typical social media interactions that ultimately won't do anything to disprove the fact that the article he shared was fake. The same type of interaction could play out if it was a comment first posted by John, a direct message between Sarah and John, or a status post with no link to a news article. Like a formal debate, Truthr makes facts and evidence an optional yet obligatory aspect of how you share your viewpoints. In any social media platform, users will always be free to share their opinions without evidence. But with the incorporation of the Truthr program, the weight of an opinion-based argument will naturally diminish as a result of expert-certified evidence being readily available to all users for a variety of socio-political topics. So what can we take away from this solution? Much of the fake news problem and general spread of inaccurate information is caused by a variety of factors. For one, we have allowed those who hold high positions in media and politics to dictate the narrative by filtering raw information through a lens of right-wing or left-wing ideology. Truthr seeks to create a buffer that reduces the influence of these colluding middlemen and women by providing factual information without the bias or the filter. But upon deeper analysis, One can make the argument that a failure of the social networks to empower their users to express factual information with the same ease and efficiency that they can share less substantial forms of expression, like emojis, is a major factor. Additionally, the scholars, professionals, and researchers who develop and first report the evidence have a build it and they will come mentality with respect to their presentation of the information. The reality is, in today's age of short attention spans, people simply will not come to read the 20-page research report. How many Democrats do you know can actually cite a research article that supports man-made climate change? How many conservatives do you know can actually cite a research article that supports a higher rate of crime amongst blacks and immigrants? We as humans naturally harbor tribal tendencies and will engage in nonsensical controversy and argument for no other reason than to be in support of a team. Keeping this in mind, it's easy to see how the evidence will continue to be relegated to the sidelines as long as it chooses to remain difficult to discover and interpret. The experts need to dissect their knowledge and place it in the hands of the public, but in a format that we can all use during normal online public discourse. If the economic data tells us that cutting taxes will not improve the middle class, the PhD holders who developed that research need to break it down and share the key points in places like the knowledge box, so that your average 20-year-old liberal can utilize it by debating a friend of opposing viewpoints or disproving fake news articles online. If biological studies tell us that gender is not a social construct, and there are clear differences in the anatomy of men and women, the research should be boiled down to a couple bullet points or a single data chart, enabling students and advocates of science to counter the arguments of those in academia whose ideas have simply gone off the deep end. If climate change is really man-made, and the Bill Maher's, Neil deGrasse Tyson's, and Bill Nye's constantly declare that the evidence is overwhelming, they must take the time to summarize the evidence in a way that allows it to retain its effectiveness in countering the opposition, while maintaining its ability to be understood by the masses. Access to so much information made us revert back to ignorance, not because the information was bad, but because those who dedicate their lives to researching and producing reports, data sets, and studies simply didn't think the masses would be so lacking in patience and measuredness that they would one day need to come back, repackage the evidence and facts that matter the most, and present it in a way that strings us along the path towards truth, however oblivious we remain.